Hey folks, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026 from the Rum Ration podcast. This is just a quick intro to our episode about our year in review for season 1. We recorded it together. Yes. We had a blast, right, Rejoy?
We had a wonderful time. Too wonderful a time, maybe.
I think maybe It wasn't the best audio. Maybe I should have paid attention to the instructions about the audio equipment that we should have had, but we had fun.
We did have fun, yes. And sadly, though, the audio was a bit, wonky, wasn't it?
A little bit of reverb, but you'll get used to it. Your ear will attune within the first 34, 45, maybe 57 seconds, and then you won't even notice it towards the end.
Exactly, like we didn't.
So. Exactly. So enjoy. Please listen to the rest of this whole podcast, and we will see you in the rest of 2026. We've got our entire year already lined up. We have our plan, and we're looking forward to meeting up with everybody in the new year.
Yes,
Happy New Year.
And we've taken a lot of your suggestions, and we're looking forward to seeing you all in 2026. So Happy New Year to all of you from the Rum Ration podcast.
I thought you said we were ignoring all the suggestions.
Oh, were we? That was Newton.
Just Newton is ignoring everything, right? Yeah. But Newton will be back, that's for sure.
Oh, yes, he will definitely be back.
All right, folks. Cheers to history.
Cheers to history. Bye-bye. Hello. Welcome back to the Rum Ration podcast, where we explore the human experiences through military history, all while sipping on any brand of rum that's willing to sponsor us.
Pretty much any brand. Yeah.
Anyone. I'm Rejoy.
And I'm Colin. And we're still patiently waiting for a sponsor, but we're determined, stubborn, and cheap.
And patient.
We'll keep waiting. And we brought our own rum for this episode. So if the lovely folks at Rosemont, which is a nice Montreal brand, made in Montreal, if they would like to sponsor us, we're here. We'd love to hear from them.
We certainly would. And forgive any slurring that may or may not take place.
Wow, there had been a little bit of rum used in the previous 2 episodes we recorded.
Yes,
so
a little bit, but we're not overdoing anything.
We're putting water in our...
Still remembering our names. So, Colin, we are 2 former infantry officers. And we have turned amateur historians.
Amateur is probably the key word.
Yes, it's a very key word. We've always been driven by our shared love and admiration of the camaraderie and selflessness of combatants the world over, eager to bring to life the stories of ordinary folks who achieved the extraordinary.
That's right. And today is a special one, Rejoy, because it's been precisely 1 year since our pilot episode was unleashed to terrorize the podcasting world. I think, admittedly, more shock than awe.
I think much more shock than awe, yes.
But more than 30 episodes later, believe it or not, folks, we're still here.
That's right.
And this is our first major milestone, a retrospective episode. Looking back at the stories we've uncovered and the lessons we've learned since we first launched the podcast, drawing on all the amazing tales of courage and logistics.
That's right, from the muddy trenches of the Western Front to the ancient plains of Cannae. It's been quite the tour, hasn't it?
It has.
Our aim today is to reminisce, reflect on our favorite episodes, and toast the history we've had the privilege.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Rosemont, your rum works.
Yes. Please sponsor us. The privilege of sharing. And we'll give you an idea of what we're looking to uncover in 2026.
That's right. Give you a little bit of give you a little sneak peek.
Yeah.
Because 2026 will be season 2, as it were, which is hard to believe.
I know. Season 2 already. Around the corner.
Where does time go? And for those of you tuning in for the first time, you will quickly learn that the Rum Ration podcast is all about. Like the actual rum ration itself, which was a tradition enjoyed by sailors of the Royal Navy for 300 plus years, our podcast is intended to be a measure of comfort and relief from the fear and discomfort, a safe space, and a moment of bonding.
It is indeed. And it's that time when the officers and NCOs would hand out a tot of rum, or grog, if you were a common sailor, after 1740, as a morale booster. And I can well see why. It helped loosen the tongues. And sadly, I think my tongue is getting very loose.
Which is why we've moved to more to grog than just rum.
Yes, indeed, the slurring is beginning. Perfect for some friendly banter and storytelling. And that's what we love best.
We try to.
Right? And that's what we aim for.
And speaking of morale boosters, before we dive into the recap, it's time for our favorite segment.
It's the Wish We Had a Sponsor segment, our fantasy sponsor segment.
Today's fantasy sponsor is most definitely not Pusser's Rum.
No.
Spirit of the Sea since 1655. If Pusser's had been any more essential to the start of this podcast in terms of inspiration, we'd be issuing it as part of standard kit. However, they didn't. But Pussers, because a great story deserves a great rum. We're waiting.
Cheers, mate. Still waiting for that email, phone call, text, signal flag, flare gun, signaling mirror, radio broadcast, trench telephone ring, whatever it takes. But we'll keep being patient.
And cheap.
And cheap. Let's not forget cheap.
Right.
Yes. So let's start with where Canada found its voice in conflict, long before the trenches. We dedicated several episodes to these foundational moments, probably due to the political tensions that arose in early 2025 and all those boomer elbows that went up.
All boomers, yes, you're right. You're talking about the War of 1812 and the invasion attempts from the south, particularly in episode 15, which is on the Battle of Queenston Heights.
Indeed.
It was a sharp lesson for the fledgling United States about underestimating their northern neighbors.
Costly mistake.
A couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, that story of Major General Isaac Brock is pure legend. I mean, just saying Major General Isaac Brock makes you want to reach for the rum ration.
Well, awesome painting, too, I was here at the RCMI.
That's right.
We'll have to take
just here around the corner, we have to do that. So he charged directly up the hill with the men he had, rallying the militia like a man trying to light a fire in a storm, as it was said. And you know what happened then? Yeah, he was shot and killed.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens. We'll wait for you to go first, sir. We'll come afterwards. But his sacrifice cemented his legacy as the savior of Upper Canada.
Yeah, you're right. And we also mustn't forget the incredible civilian bravery, like Laura Secord, who invented, I think she gave Willy Wonka his start in the chocolate factory, right?
Well,
no?
Yeah, but,
she also walked 19 miles.
They go in many different directions.
More than 30 kilometers to warn the British troops of American plans.
Yes.
A true testament to the combined efforts of Canadian, British, and, crucially, Indigenous allies.
Yeah, that's right. And they all got chocolate after the war.
Naturally.
Have to. We also had a lot of fun discussing the absurdity of American expansionism in episode 21, Quebec 1775.
Which was probably my favorite title. I love that.
That was a brilliant title. America's Worst Winter Getaway. Benedict Arnold's column took an arduous route through the Maine wilderness, but his 180-mile trek prediction became a grueling 350-mile, 45-day journey. So, I mean, even starting off with don't worry, boys, 180 miles.
Through dense brush in November and December.
Not a problem. We'll manage this. And then 350 miles later, it's like, are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Yeah, only double. Great title, by the way, as I said, and you outdid yourself because Arnold's column was a logistical nightmare involving leaky boats, starvation. Can you believe, like, the soldiers ate first all the dogs, then the candles, then their shoes and their boots? And eventually it reduced Arnold's men to being emaciated scarecrows.
Yeesh.
Yeah, their fundamental misunderstanding of Canadian society and the weather and relentless environment led to a resounding defeat. That often overlooked and almost always misunderstood French-Canadian element is something we're going to be spending a lot of time in Season 2. À bientôt, nos amis.
Indeed. That theme of early Canadian identity carried through to episode 17, Maple Leafs and Mausers, the Battle of Paardeberg during the Boer War. And that's where the Royal Canadian Regiment had their first true baptism of fire on a foreign battlefield in 1900.
That's right. This was the Second Anglo-Boer War, driven by conflict over gold and diamonds. Democratic rights of settlers. Right. I'm sure.
Maybe the gold and diamonds are just, they happen to be there.
Someone should pick them up.
Yeah, you shouldn't just leave it lying around. Secure it. Put it in a safe place.
The RCR, the Royal Canadian Regiment, which was made up of permanent force professionals and militia volunteers, were tasked with a bold night assault.
Ooh,
we know how that goes. Bold and night assault.
Those are two words that, thanks for boating.
Yeah, that's great. Great plan. Why don't you go first? They advanced over 800 yards. Wow, almost a full kilometer of open ground with no trenches or artillery support. Yeesh. And they were facing deadly Boer marksmen who were using those Mausers who could really reach out and touch someone from a distance.
Oh, and then, boy, did they ever. They were deadly marksmen. They were so skilled at what they did.
And didn't work well, eh?
It worked well for the Boers. It didn't work so well for the RCR. Bloody Sunday is what they called it, long before Bloody Sunday in the 70s and long before the U2 song.
Right.
So, which I don't think they sang about this Bloody Sunday.
Possibly not.
Maybe they should. Someone should suggest that. But 18 Canadians died and 60 were wounded, which maybe, in light of all the things we talked about at first may not sound
No, you're right.
catastrophic until you realize there were only 303 of them engaged in the first place. And then all of a sudden, that's a 26% casualty rate.
That's
pretty significant. So the battle later became Canada's first National Day of Military Remembrance, celebrated every February 27th, and only replaced after World War I, brought Armistice Day on the 11th of November.
So the original Remembrance Day would have been the 17th of February. Interesting.
Right?
A lot of people probably didn't know that.
Yeah.
They're lucky they have the Rum Ration podcast to bring them these facts.
Quality information delivered in the comfort of your own home. Why would you not subscribe?
Do you find it strange, though, that we don't get people just like walking up to us and giving us cash and saying thank you?
No, but they keep asking us for cash and not saying thank you.
Yeah, we got a lot of that yesterday.
Yeah, a lot of it walking back.
on Yonge Street. Yeah,
a lot of that. Not a good experience.
And the Boer War service was actually exposed how unprepared Canada was for war.
Oh, yes.
That's an enduring tradition, an enduring Canadian custom, which later contributed to the disastrous procurement of the Ross rifle and how it affected Canada's mobilization for the First World War. World War I, Rejoy, that's where our bias really shines through. And we covered our beloved regiment, the Royal Montreal Regiment, the RMR, extensively, starting with their journey into the trenches.
And those are really enlightening episodes, weren't they? I mean, I think both you and I also learned a lot just researching those episodes. So episodes 8 and 9 really emphasize the mundane reality of war, the training in the cold, wet conditions of Salisbury Plain, the sheer volume of logistics, over 17,000 men and nearly 5,000 horses.
It's a lot.
Colin, 5,000 horses in the 1st Canadian Division, and the sheer unpleasantness. Now, that's something that has not changed when it comes to training over the years. Remember the goatskin coats?
Yes.
A gift from the Tsar of Russia, supposedly which were traded for warmth, but brought with them what? Fleas and a rather pungent odor.
Yeah, apparently they could be smelt a long way away. And the trains, don't forget the French trains, Rejoy.
Yes.
Marked 40 hommes, 8 chevaux. Talk about cramped conditions, especially when your average soldier's carrying 60 pounds of kit, including the Ross rifle, ammunition, and entrenching tools. Certainly, that would have been too undignified, I think, for your Cat Newton, who, as regular listeners are all too well aware, he's pretty quick to loudly proclaim his displeasure. In fact, it's almost felt weird that we've been recording here at the RCMI and
don't hear him anywhere.
I've not heard him chime in once with a contrarian.
And he has not called.
Yet.
And, well, you know how he feels about horses. So
that came out loud and clear of that episode of the Royal Canadian Horse Artillery. He was
he was highly offended.
Yeah, one of the Royal Canadian Cat Artillery.
That's right, and he would insist on traveling in the officers' club.
Naturally. But I heard that maybe in season 2 there might be a contrarian take on Newton.
Yes.
I think because he has. Let's face it, he's got a lot of conspiracy theories.
He's one of the biggest conspiracy theorists on the web.
Right. So he's probably behind a lot of that stuff, isn't he?
He's behind a lot of it. Yes.
So we're going to maybe have an episode where we dispel some of Newton's myths?
I think we must do that. I think we have to, because sometimes when I turn on my computer, I find some dubious web browsing has been going on.
Right.
So
and that's definitely Newton.
Yeah, because not me. No. And he managed to do it without having thumbs, which is quite amazing.
It is.
So when the Canadian troops arrived at the line in 1950 to get back on track, the reality was stark.
It was.
Trenches were often knee-deep in water and mud, collapsing constantly. The official history noted that bodies were often buried in the parapets of the trenches. And large rats wandered everywhere. I remember reading a story of in one particular trench when the Canadians took it over and they were coming to the trench. And, of course, a body had been buried into the parapet, but the arm was kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
So these guys had a little tradition of shaking
shaking
the hand as they went by.
Yeah, and for our civilian friends who don't really know what a parapet is, it's basically the side of the wall of the trench that's being built into. They were using the bodies as sandbags.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. But danger was everywhere in the trenches. And the RMR's first soldier killed in action was Private Edmund Hopi, an American volunteer. Didn't have to be there. He'd come up to Canada to volunteer, and he was shot by a sniper. And as Captain Victor Currie wrote in a letter about that time, any man who straightened up was likely to, quote, get one through the head, sure, end quote.
Yeah, and they did. Many of them did. And then, of course, came the terrifying new weapon.
Oh, yeah.
Gas warfare. God, that's terrifying. I think that is the enduring image of World War I, through all the various war paintings and things. So we dedicated a 3-part series.
We did.
The Second Battle of Ypres, episode 11 set the stage, emphasizing the Ypres salient as the bulge that couldn't be lost because of the ports. Again, the ports linking to the UK.
Yeah, I have a bulge that can't be lost either. It's just, I've been working on it, but as I'm getting older, it's harder to get rid of the pot. Seems that the bulge is getting bigger. It's winning. Episode 12 also brought the horrors to life, starting with Wilfred Owen's Dulce et Decorum Est, which was read to us by the very famous poet Aisha.
Yes.
The first, but not the last poet that we had on the podcast. I consider, we're a poet positive? Or
we are poet
friendly?
Yeah,
I think we're poet positive.
Yeah. We've sort of fallen into that, haven't we?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Positive indeed.
They too could sponsor us if they were.
They could, and if they had money.
It's the problem with poets.
Poets,
We should try to be like, I don't know, tech bro positive or something.
I love technology. You love technology.
We're using it
right now.
Look at that.
Any tech pros out there who, would like to sponsor us, we'll buy you a glass of rum.
Well, we'll let them watch us drink it.
Better still.
There. Anyway, back to episode 12, which was titled Gas, 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 which will, of course, make any listener who's ever served in the armed forces immediately twitch. It was profoundly unsettling to learn that the first large-scale lethal gas attack used 170 metric tons of chlorine gas, and it killed over 1,100 troops. And didn't die nicely.
No, that's not a good way to go.
Causing the world to realize that the air could kill.
Something which nobody would have ever thought of before this time. So all of a sudden...
Well, except for those Russians where they determined to test the gas on them in February.
That was just a test. It was just a test. And,
it didn't work well either.
Didn't work. It's kind of... the whole wind thing was always a bit of a problem. Episode 13, that's where we focused on the RMR specifically and showed their remarkable resolve. Our beloved regiment were untested volunteers, but when the French Algerian divisions broke under the gas attack, the Canadians extended their lines to cover the massive gap. The 14th Battalion, Royal Montreal Regiment, suffered 269 casualties.
That's a lot.
It's a lot in that defining moment. 69 killed, 151 wounded, and 49 taken as prisoners of war. And just imagining those numbers, in my mind's eye, I'm looking over the parade square. There's no one standing there.
Oh, no, absolutely not. 269 is a huge number.
It's huge.
And part of the prisoners of war that we've just recently learned, Arthur Nantel, who's a very famous war artist, was from the RMR.
From the RMR,
yes. And we're thinking about doing an episode on him in season 2. It feels weird to say season 2.
It feels great to say season 2, doesn't it?
Season 2. Look at us. We're veterans now.
Yes. We are.
Look at us.
Season 2.
Gosh. Well, back to season 1, we remembered heroes like Captain Richard Stacey, who was the RMR's first officer killed in action, who died leading his company after the chlorine gas had rolled in, and his company commander had been killed. The casualties were and he was quite killed very quickly himself.
Yes.
The most impressive story for me was probably Captain Francis Scrimger, the medical officer of the RMR, who won the Victoria Cross, or earned the Victoria Cross, I should say, after refusing orders to retire. And then he shielded a wounded comrade by wrapping himself around the guy's head under shell fire at Shell Trap Farm. Great name.
Good name, yeah.
It might have been also, I think maybe the one that struck to me the most, could have been also the Black Watch's Fred Fisher.
That's right.
We did talk about that in that episode because there was an RMR connection. His gun crew was helping him with that Colt machine gun. Remember we saw a Colt machine gun here at the RCMI?
That's right, we saw that right here.
It's really wild.
Yeah.
Fred Fisher was a 19-year-old, 19, who earned the Victoria Cross that day, the day before Scrimger did, and his body was never found.
Incredible. 19 years old. Such bravery.
Sad.
Well, the RMR's defining moment, like all Canadian units that fought there, was Vimy Ridge. And in episode 10, we covered Vimy Ridge and the turning point, and where we interviewed our very first guest, Caitlin Bailey, the executive director of the Vimy Foundation. And you had a great conversation with her, Colin.
We did, yeah. It was a good conversation. That was our very first interview. It worked out well, and we decided to do a bunch more afterwards, which also we'll get to in a few minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
Vimy was, considered the birth of a nation moment, and it was meticulously prepared for as a battle, with rehearsals conducted over and over again, and the maps given down to a low level, all the troops briefed on the plan, and it led to an incredibly successful assault on April 9th, my mom's birthday, 1917. Not that she was born in 1917. I've got to clarify that. I'll make sure that's very clear to people.
Very clear.
The victory led to Canada signing the Treaty of Versailles independently, not as a colony, and helped influence the British decision to grant Canada full independent nation status in 1931.
That's right. And the RMR's 14th Battalion was right there.
Of course.
At Vimy, in the very first assault wave, going over the top at 5:30 a.m. in a raging snowstorm. You know, I don't like going anywhere at 5:30 a.m.
That's
and
true.
in a raging snowstorm,
Even less
even
so.
less so. But when you know you're going over the top,
Oh, God.
oh, Jesus Christ. So the cost was staggering. 98 RMRs killed and 176 wounded on April 9th alone.
Yeah, and actually probably before like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly.
Crazy.
Don't even see sunrise. Oh, God. The story of the West brothers, Arthur and Bill, who died on the same day and are buried together in the same grave. Well, that brings home the sacrifice.
It does. And their third brother, also in the RMR, was killed also in 1917, a couple months later. Yeah, can you imagine that poor family? Lost 3 sons in a space of a couple of months. 2 of them on the same day.
It's crazy.
My personal favorite takeaway in terms of poignant moments, particularly from that episode, was the Nine Elms Cemetery story, where Sergeant William James Lambourne, an RMR NCO, supervised the burial, arranging his comrades, those 98 who were killed, first by rank and then alphabetically within each rank, believed to be the only cemetery of its kind in the entire Commonwealth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's quite something.
Yeah. 80 RMRs. I mean, I said 98 were killed, but some of them died later of their wounds. But there were 80 who were buried there at Nine Elms, where the cemetery is, was essentially the RMR's objective for the attack on Vimy Ridge. And as you know, you consolidate on the objective, and one of the parts of the consolidation is you bring in the casualties and you lay out the dead. And they had so many of them, they started to bury them there. And he's the one who was responsible for laying them all out alphabetically and sorted by rank.
What a task.
You know, it really speaks to the deep love and, of course, the attention to detail from those NCOs.
Yeah, it really does. It puts it all very much in perspective. And then, of course, we have to talk about General Sir Arthur Currie, who played a key planning role at Vimy and was the subject of our episode 23. And the paradox of the man is fascinating. Tall, portly, and awkward. Not going to say anything.
Who are you looking at? What are you looking at? I'm not awkward.
Well, you know,
if I'm going to get compared to anyone, I'll take a comparison to Currie. No problem.
Well, he certainly didn't look the part, as they said, of a military officer.
But he was a military genius. So I think that's where you're probably getting the confusion, right?
You're absolutely right.
And you think military genius.
I do indeed, yes.
But as we dug into the research getting ready for that, we learned that he had a bit of a dark past.
Oh, a little bit of a dark past.
Who doesn't, though? Well, having stolen over $10,000. About 200,000, 250,000 of today's dollars from the 50th Highlanders regimental funds to pay off debt before deployment. Yet professionally, he was brilliant. He mastered the war's complexity, choosing to spend shells rather than the lives of his men, which I'm sure is appreciated.
Yes, absolutely, very much
so. And flashing newsbreak, probably inspired by the RMR.
Of course, yeah.
Who have just recently got permission to rename their armory after Major General Charles Basil Price. The Seaforth Highlanders are going to be renaming their armory after Currie.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was just announced last week.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. That's wonderful.
Good old Currie.
You know, and another thing about the $10,000, I mean, look at it from this perspective. This is how I choose to look at it. You know you're going to go to war. You don't want to be burdened by debt or having, being short of money. You borrow a little bit of money, you'll pay it back in time. And he did.
That's why, just a reminder, you still owe me for lunch.
I know. Sorry about that. In 4 years, I'll get that back. So, well, that philosophy saved thousands of lives. Not what I was talking about, but Currie's philosophy in his planning. And at Hill 70, which was our episode 22, he challenged Field Marshal Haig's orders, developing instead the tactical victory that resulted in 20,000 German casualties against the, quote, only 9,000 Canadian losses. Only. Well, and that's the thing, though, right? If he hadn't done that, can you imagine what the casualty rate would have been? That's what the point they were trying to make. And he earned his reputation as one of the finest generals in the Allied armies.
I mean, you said he challenged Field Marshal Haig. I think the reality is he kind of refused the order.
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah,
and had such standing that Haig listened to him, and he got the chance to redo the plan. And
he succeeded.
Very successful.
Yeah, very, very successful indeed.
So let's switch gears here from people to talk a little bit about equipment and procurement, often a point of both national pride and tragic failure occasionally.
Yes. Episode 16, the Ross Rifle. is a cautionary tale. It was a marksman's dream, accurate, winning international competitions. Oh, but an infantryman's nightmare.
Yeah, because the rifle became a symbol of failure. Its intricate mechanism, which was beautifully machined and very finely fitting, jammed easily with mud and sand and dirt in the trenches, and sometimes required an entrenching tool to clear it or having to kick at it with your feet. And the risk of bolt blowback was also terrifying. One recorded casualty had his own head blown off by the blowback of a bolt that wasn't put in properly.
Well, it must be said, Canadian infantrymen hated it, but the German infantrymen loved it.
Because it's killing the Canadians. Yeah.
How would you like to use the Ross rifle? Here you are. So my favorite quote from that episode was Lieutenant Colonel MacDonald's assessment after Ypres. It is nothing short of murder to send out men against the enemy with such a weapon. And
so he wasn't exactly pulling his punches on that.
No, he was not. He was not. And that's very strong language coming from an officer.
And in the Second World War, we saw similar issues with a British-designed Sten submachine gun, which we covered in episode 24.
Yes.
And it was ugly and cheaply made. Designed purely out of necessity. Didn't we concur that cheap and ugly was the unofficial model of the Rum Ration podcast?
Yes. Right. There we are. The Sten earned the insulting nicknames like Plumber's Delight and Stench Gun because it looked like it was assembled from hardware store scraps.
The original one was actually the prototype. They went to the hardware store.
So it's not an insult. It's actually just a description.
Historically accurate.
So and there were reliability issues. In fact, they were legendary. A veteran noted that the spring in the magazine was, it was no darn good.
No darn good.
And caused constant jams.
Yet, because it was easily concealed and broke down quickly, and of course, most importantly, it used the same ammunition that the Germans did, 9mm. It was indispensable for resistance groups across occupied Europe. You could drop it behind lines, they could just pick up ammunition from the Germans, and off to the races. And it reminds us that often the most effective tools are those that simply get the job done, regardless of how ugly they look. And I've said that, I've seen that in your performance reviews before. The most effective tool got the job done, regardless of how ugly he looks. That was in your course report, wasn't it, on phase 2?
We won't go into the details of the course report. No, indeed. We'll just sort of skim over that, move straight to World War II, episode 14. Black Christmas, the Battle of Hong Kong. That was Canada's first major land engagement in that war, and the odds were overwhelming.
Yeah, not a fun time, not something to be kidding about. The Canadians, particularly the Royal Rifles of Canada from Quebec City, and the Winnipeg Grenadiers from
Where were they?
faced a battle marked by intense suffering and incredible human endurance. And we covered that heroic final stand of Brigadier Lawson.
Chilling.
Who famously radioed his headquarters, quote, "I'm going outside to fight it out." Those were the last words. And before he stepped out with his sidearm. Spoiler alert, he didn't make it.
Well, hence the last words.
Yes.
Can't Otherwise, you would have said something else. We would have heard from him later on. Hi, I'm here, waiting, much like us, for sponsorship. Well, then we have the selflessness of Company Sergeant Major John Osborne, who was awarded the VC posthumously for throwing himself on a Japanese grenade to save 7 wounded comrades. And also, tragically, we have the story of Gander, the massive Newfoundlander dog, mascot of the Royal Rifles, who also sacrificed himself on a grenade.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We also mustn't forget the Canadian nurses, Kathleen Christie and Anna Mae Waters, who became the only Canadian women prisoner of war during the entire conflict.
That's right.
The suffering of Canadians, not just the nurses, but all of them as prisoners of wars in camps like the Sham Shui Po, was appalling, and they endured brutal treatment at the hands of sociopath guards, like the Kamloops kid that we learned about.
Learned about him,
And of course, they were down to near starvation. They were only getting 800 calories a day.
Can you imagine?
And not enough vitamins, so they were starting to go blind, and all these other diseases, and rampant disease like dysentery, which we discovered is a nice word for shitting yourself to death.
Yes, and it was, the excrement comes out, then after that's blood.
Yeah.
It's just, it's horrible. It's horrible.
The Kamloops kid really surprised me because I was like, can you imagine that? You're from Winnipeg or Quebec City, and then you end up in the complete other end of the world, and you're ending up after a severe battle, and you end up in a prisoner of war camp. And not only does one of the Japanese guards speak English, he's from Canada.
He's from Canada.
Oh, and all the Canadians beat him up when he was a kid, and he has a grudge.
Yeah, a big grudge, big chip on his shoulder. So he's going to take it out on you.
He sure did.
Terrifying. So, well, we also covered Canada's participation in the Vietnam War, which was episode 7, and something not very many people know about, the fact that there were Canadians there, because officially, Canada declined involvement in that war. But little known, between 30 to 40,000 individual Canadians volunteered to fight the U.S. military.
That's incredible. Big number.
It's a huge number. And that's more than double the number of American draft dodgers who fled to Canada.
Yeah, that surprises a lot of people when they hear that, because, you know, the stereotypical view that you see in Hollywood was about how Canada was all peaceful and welcoming and all this and that. But meanwhile, what did you say? We declined involvement. Our economy was certainly humming along, making napalm, as we discovered, and selling it to the Americans, and a whole bunch of other weapons and things that were going down. Yeah.
Everybody needs to make a living.
Everyone needs to make a living, And we had the story of Peter C. Lemon, who was a Canadian-born Medal of Honor recipient, exemplified that extraordinary courage. He fought hand-to-hand and carried a wounded comrade to safety despite multiple injuries, and he later admitted to initially being a little stoned. These veterans received little to no recognition from Canada upon return, and that's sometimes controversial, but you and I think we kind of landed on the fact of why would they? They
weren't fighting for Canada.
They weren't fighting for Canada.
What you do on your own time, you do on your own time.
Correct. So, Richard, what's been your favorite episode to put together, or the one that provided the biggest insight?
Yeah, especially the biggest insight part of it, I think, is for sheer logistics and community, episode 27.
Naturally.
Armory or bust. But I mean, that really resonated with me, and I learned so much from that episode as well about my own beloved regiment, our own beloved regiment, because it told the story of how the Armar, returning victorious from World War I, had to fight a new battle in Westmount to stay alive.
That's right.
And it was Lieutenant Colonel Price and the Armory Association that realized the Armar would die if they didn't have a home.
That's right.
So they framed the Armory that not just as a drill hall, but as a memorial to the 1,192 Armars who had died overseas during the war.
That's right. And we had our official centennial dinner on the 7th of November, and I got the opportunity to speak to the crowd for a bit, and one of the things I pointed out was actually 1193, even though the memorial says 92, is because, and there's something about an episode we're probably going to do in season 2, is that the Armar had a soldier executed. Actually, the first Canadian executed in World War I was an Armar, and he was not counted in that original 1192. So that's why it's 1193. So a little factoid of history for you.
Again, you learn something every day.
Yeah, there was 25 Canadians executed in World War I, and I think we'll do an episode
cover
of
that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But that whole campaign for the Armory, it relied on the community backing, so Westmount really got behind it, and an emotional appeal, and it ultimately saved the regiment from dissolution. We weren't amalgamated, we weren't wound down, and that's a real testament to dedication. For me, I think, though, my favorite was episode 19, The Battle of Cannae, which was recorded on my birthday, August 2nd.
Yes, the day Rome bled.
Not necessarily on my birthday.
They didn't. Well, it was more, your birthday sort of.
I shouldn't. I'm not trying to take any credit for the fact that.
I know you saw.
I don't think I should be blamed
a little bit. Just.
But what did Hannibal do? Huh?
Well,
he had an army. Yeah. He had an army, what, half the size of the Romans?
Yeah. It was nowhere near the size of the Roman army.
Romans had, 86,000?
Something like that.
Yeah, and he orchestrated a catastrophe for the Romans, which is still studied today.
It's studied in every military academy around the world.
Right. Yeah. The key insight, of course, was the Roman command. I couldn't believe this one. The two consuls, Paulus and Varro, sharing command day by day, despite disagreeing and distrusting each other.
It's democracy in action.
Boy, oh boy, is it ever.
And Hannibal's genius was the double envelopment that every commander loves to talk about down to this day. He deliberately created a convex arc of Gauls and Iberians in the center, so his lighter armed infantry, essentially dangling some bait.
Yeah.
Like, come and get me, come and get me, and let the Romans smash into it, which they did with great enthusiasm, and bent the line inward into a concave trap, and then on the flanks, he had his Libyan heavy infantry.
Right.
And they closed around the Romans like a vice.
Yeah, the slaughter was unimaginable. Sources claimed up to 70,000 dead Romans.
70,000.
That's a lot of dead Romans.
One day.
And killed, like, I mean, 10 by hand.
Yes, by hand.
There wasn't no artillery smashing down into them.
Nope.
It was a massacre. It was not a battle, and it drives home that strategy and leadership matter immensely.
Yeah.
A lesson that echoed in our deep dive on the Avro Arrow and the Bomarc missile.
Yeah, so maybe these are two of my favorites here, episodes 18 and 20, which explored the painful decision to cancel the Avro Arrow, which is a source of pride for so many Canadians.
Elbows up.
Yeah, we always talk about the Arrow. Why did we cancel the Arrow? Well, we learned a lot, didn't we, from those
I bet you
episodes?
Newton has a conspiracy on that one.
Well, he's still going on about it. He disagrees highly with the whole...
I had to delete all the
I
comments that he was
know,
putting
that was a
on
lot
our
of
YouTube
work.
channel.
He kept, But the quote from Dr. Sean Maloney, who we had as a guest on the episode, really sums up the nationalistic sentiment. Quote, Arrow good, Bomarc bad. There is no quarter. The Bomarc had to be bad, so the Arrow could be so good. Unquote.
Yeah. Elbows up, baby.
Elbows up.
Yeah, that political maneuvering and the rapidly changing strategic world ultimately grounded a state-of-the-art aircraft before it truly took flight. And it's a reminder of the need to resist the elbows-up jingoism when making decisions of such magnitude.
Yeah, you're talking about life and death at the end of the day, you know? Don't have time for that kind of nonsense. Well, we wrapped up our first 25 episodes with our Jubilee episode on Popcorn and Powder Smoke, our favorite war movies. And that episode, Colin, as you remember, was recommended by a friend, Ai Suzuki, who's also a friend of the show.
That's true.
And who is in the media business. And she said, why don't you guys, talk a little bit about your favorite movies? And we thought that was such a great idea.
It's a great idea.
It was a great way to show how movies shape our memory of conflict.
I thought she was going to give us the Jubilee Medal for it, though.
Yeah, suddenly went very quiet.
Yeah. Well, whether it was the willful blindness and British understatement in A Bridge Too Far, or the quiet endurance and disillusionment in Journey's End, or All Quiet on the Western Front, those films connected us to the human aspects of war, the courage, the fear, and the sheer fatigue.
Sheer fatigue, yeah, indeed. Colin, looking back at the most powerful recurring theme is that of selflessness. We saw it everywhere, from the Christmas truce of 1914, where soldiers emerged from trenches to share gifts and play football, to Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae riding in Flanders fields out of grief for the loss of his close friend.
Yeah, and that poem immortalizing the poppy led to the global symbol of remembrance, championed by figures like Moina Michael and Anna Guérin. It reminds us that behind every uniform, there's a heartbeat and sometimes a pen.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I learned from that episode is how it also played a big role in the United States. I mean, we really don't know that over here. We don't really understand it, but it was a big American thing.
As opposed to, was it Daisy Day?
Daisy, yeah, was it Daisy
something?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be Daisies.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then, of course, we're incredibly proud to keep these stories alive. The bravery of the Canadian Corps at Hill 70 and Vimy, the grit of the Canadians facing gas at Ypres, which must have been, I can't even imagine the terror, and the quiet perseverance of the sailors on Canada's first submarines, CC-1 and CC-2, who exemplified the Canadian spirit of make do. And that episode, Colin, was our top performing episode, with Rear Admiral Christopher Robinson, your brother, who gave a stunning storytelling about how
easy now.
all this happened.
We don't want to go to his head. Like, we're gonna have to spend Christmas dinner with him. Like, let's probably get in completely.
Okay. Chris, you did a terrible job.
But it was our best performing episode, and if you haven't listened to it, make sure you listen too.
Yeah, so you see how I dialed that back now?
You did. I appreciate that.
But yeah, it was a wonderful episode, and I got to say, learned a lot. I had no idea about any of that, and the story is really like
the fact that a province decided basically got us into submarine business with a midnight payment and pickup. That was amazing. Yeah.
Wonderful.
But on that note, Rejoy, before we sign off, it's time for our final and favorite segment.
Have to have it. It's the Wish We Had a Sponsor segment.
That's right. Today's fantasy sponsor is Maison Blanche Reserve, the only rum aged deep beneath Vimy Ridge, matured in the very tunnels where the RMR waited for 0 hour, infused with notes of damp wool, trench whispers, and a subtle hint of gun oil.
Maison Blanche Reserve. smooth enough for a toast, strong enough to steady the nerves. Raise a glass to the ghosts who went over the top.
Well, folks, we're going to wrap it up here. Unless you've got some other comments or anything else you want to talk about. Anything you learned from the first season 1?
Well, I learned that season 2 is going to be as great and as brilliant as season 1 was.
If not even greater and more brilliant.
Yes.
It's been a great reflection on the extraordinary stories that we've covered. And if you enjoyed this journey through history, please subscribe, like, and share the show with anyone who appreciates history with a human touch and a generous pour.
Yes, of course. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, please send us a message at rumration.ca on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to hear from you. And lastly, let's toast some of our super fans who are always there to encourage us with comments. Thank you, Georges. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Dan. And thank you to everyone who comments. Keep them coming.
Keep them coming. Until next time, raise a glass. Thank you for your support. And as always,
cheers to history.